You guys ready to hear from our 26th President of the United States of America? President Teddy Roosevelt, can you come and speak with our students?
I'd be delighted, Mr. Lopez. Good morning. Good morning, classes. Good morning, students. Mr. Lopez, a pleasure. A pleasure. Good morning. Young Americans, I am, as Mr. Lopez said, Theodore Roosevelt, 26th President of these United States, and I am delighted to be here. It's truly bully, if you ask me. Now, I need you to listen to Mr. Lopez, but when I tell you to, you can use your voices, okay? Now, can anyone tell me what bully means? Anyone? Yes, right here. Yes. Today it does. When I was president, believe it or not, that's not what it meant. It meant cool. It meant wonderful, excellent, first-rate, great. So when I say bully, I mean something is wonderful. So let's practice. I'm going to say some things, and you're all going to say, oh, bully. Ready? I once boxed in the White House. Ah, bully. Good, good. My face is on Mount Rushmore. Yes, bully indeed. I was the first president to ride in an airplane and in a submarine. Yes, bully indeed. Very good, very good. Well, would you all like to hear about my life? Good. Well, how about this to start with? That's me when I was your age. And when I was your age, I was so sick all the time, the doctors said I might not live to be an adult. Were they wrong? Yes, they were. I became a cowboy, a soldier, an adventurer, president, creator of national parks. Would you like to hear how I did all that? Good, good. I'm glad, because otherwise I would have to leave right now. Okay, well, New York City. I was born in the year 1858. Now, picture this. Picture a little boy gasping for breath in the middle of the night, year after year. My father would hold me and help me to calm down enough to be able to breathe. I had terrible asthma. Does anyone know what asthma is? Anyway, yes, right here. Yes, you. Yes, it's sickness in your lungs that makes it very hard to breathe. And doctors didn't know how to help with asthma in those days. It was very difficult. I often could not run and play outside with the other children because of my health problems. And doctors in those days, as I say, they didn't know how to help, which made for a very challenging childhood. But there were many joyful things about my childhood as well. In fact, my father, you see him here behind me, he helped found the American Museum of Natural History. And it was through that I developed a love of animals and nature. Now, has anyone here ever been to a natural history museum? Very good. Well, I heard a rumor that the second graders get to go. So, that sounds wonderful. My father founded the one in New York. I collected everything I could find. I collected birds, bugs, mice. I couldn't always leave my house because of my health, but I built the Roosevelt Museum of Natural History right in my bedroom. I especially loved birds. I learned how to preserve them after they die. It's called taxidermy. You'll see that at the Natural History Museum. I learned all the scientific names for the creatures. Did you know animals have science names too, fancy-sounding ones? I also learned how to draw and paint birds. Now, I will tell you a funny story. One day, we had a maid in our house, and she opened the freezer to take out some cheese. And she screamed, and her scream went through the whole house because I had put a dead mouse in there to save it for later study, and she didn't think that was very funny at all, although I think it's quite funny indeed. Well, now, my family. I had 3 brothers and sisters. You can see, this is me here. with some of our cousins and aunts and uncles. And my father was a very wealthy and successful man, but he was a good man. I adored my father. He was the greatest man I ever knew, and I wanted to be like him. Well, one day, when I was about 12 years old, my father, he came to me. I was still sick and struggling with asthma. My body was very weak, and my father, he took me aside, and he said, "Theodore, you have the mind, but you do not have the body. You must make your body." And I said, "I will." I said, "I will make my body," and I did. My father built me a gymnasium in the house. I started lifting weights. I started boxing, running, swimming. I started getting strong, and my asthma started to get better. Well, the doctors then also recommended my parents take me out to the countryside, to the mountains, for fresh air. And that, my friends, was when I truly started to fall in love with the outdoors. The mountains, the lakes, the rivers, the forests. I cannot tell you how beautiful our country truly is. Leaving the city to get out into nature is good. It's good for the soul, it's good for the body. And my body began to heal even more. Now, it was the beginning of one of the most important lessons of my life. I had to struggle to build my body, to beat my asthma. It was very hard work, and it made me strong. And that was the first time I truly learned struggle builds strength. Well, it's a funny picture, isn't it? I'm sorry to tell you that I didn't die young like the doctors said that I might. I went to college, to Harvard University, and continued to pursue the great adventure of life. I kept building my strength. That's a picture of me at Harvard. I boxed. I was even on the rowing team. We would go out into the river and row boats. Now, I must remind you here, strength is not just the body. Strength is also of the mind. I loved to read, and eventually I even began to write. In my later years, I often read a whole book every single day. And I will tell you that over the course of my life, I wrote almost 40 books. Now, where were we? College. Yes. So, I must tell you this. When I was 19 in college, in my second year, my beloved father, he died. He was my hero, as I have said, a truly great man, and I was heartbroken. It was a great loss. But even then, I still remembered what he had taught me, that struggle builds strength. And so, although it was indeed a great struggle to lose my father, I determined to become stronger for it. Well, I got married a few years later, after college, to a beautiful woman named Alice, and we were very happy. We also had a daughter, and we named her Alice as well. Yes, she was beautiful, little Alice. Sadly, another tragedy struck. 2 days after little Alice was born, it was Valentine's Day, and both my wife and my beloved mother died on the same day. It was very difficult. I was very sad. It was the darkest, hardest day of my life. I was 25 years old, alone with an infant baby, and I felt truly lost. But I had learned a simple lesson in life. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. And I would say that many, many times over the years. It means that you have to make choices based on whatever is in front of you in life, whatever is in front of you then. So in my grief and my sadness, I made a choice. And it was perhaps a strange decision, but it ended up being one of the most important decisions I ever made. Because it built me into the man who would one day become president. I left my baby Alice with my sister, and I went out to the Wild West, to North Dakota, to become a cowboy. Well, you remember, of course, my love for nature and the great outdoors. Moving west to North Dakota was about more than that for me. The West was a hard, tough place. Cowboys were hard, tough men, and I wanted to prove myself as a man. I wanted to prove to myself that I could be respected among strong men, and I did. I learned the cowboy life, caring for the animals, the great outdoors. It was not easy, but I struggled through. And what happens when you struggle? That's right, you get stronger. But something else happened in North Dakota. I fell ever more deeply in love with the beauty of our country, of America, and that planted the seeds for when years later as president, I would create even more national parks and national forests and protected places to ensure that all this beauty would still be there for you. Now listen, I will tell you that the business of ranching, that means making money with ranching, it was very hard. And I will tell you truly, I was not good at that part of it. I failed at that. I had proved that I could make it with the men, with the cowboys, but when it came to ranching, I couldn't make a dime. But that was all right, because I had struggled, I had grown stronger, and I had learned what I needed to learn. And most importantly, something in my heart had healed. And it was time for me to go back to New York, to my daughter, to that other life. And I have good news for you all. I had certainly experienced, as you know, a great deal of sadness and tragedy in my young life. But when I returned home to New York, the good news is I did find love again. I married my childhood sweetheart. Her name was Edith Caro. We had known ourselves for many, many years, since we were children. And we built a beautiful home together called Sagamore Hill on Long Island, which is part of New York. And we went on to have 5 more children in addition to Alice. 6 children total. Can you believe it? It was Alice, Ted, Kermit, Ethel, Archie, and Quentin. Some of those names probably sound pretty silly to you 120 years later, but they were very good names back then. And our house was loud and wild and wonderful. Now, I was confident by now that I wanted a career in politics, in leading people. I wanted to make a difference in the world through politics. So that's what I set out to do. I became police commissioner of New York City. That means you're the boss of the police officers. And let me tell you, I drove them crazy. I used to walk around the city at night just to make sure they were doing their jobs and catch them if they were being lazy. I didn't tolerate any funny business, and I was tough on them because I knew that it was the police officer's job to protect the people, which means the police officers needed to behave themselves with integrity, and they needed to be working hard. Now, but I will also tell you that I had always loved the Navy. That's the ships, the American ships. I believed that America's military force around the world required a large, powerful Navy. So when the opportunity then arose for me to become Assistant Secretary of the Navy, I left the New York City Police, and I took the job. It was a leader in the leadership of the Navy. Well, I'll tell you a story. There was something I started truly dreaming about at this time. It was of a day when American ships could sail from the West Coast to the East Coast and back again without having to go all the way down under South America. Now, bold men had thought of this idea hundreds of years before of creating a river right across the middle of Central America, but it had never happened, and it didn't happen yet. But I fell in love with that idea, and it was one that I would come back to once I was president. But not yet, because war broke out. War with the country of Spain. They sank one of our ships in Cuba, which is an island south of Florida, and we entered the war against Spain to help the people of Cuba. Well, I was 39 years old, I had 6 children at home, and people told me, "Theodore, you're crazy. You're too old to go to war." I said, nonsense. War is a very great adventure, and I'm going to help my country to win this war. So I did. I left my job as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and I formed a special unit of Army soldiers who fought from horseback. And we called ourselves the Rough Riders. Everyone say that with me, the Rough Riders. That's right, bully, ha! And let me tell you, we were the real deal. We were tough, we were brave, we had men from all walks of life. We had cowboys from out west. We had Harvard and Yale college boys from out east. We had policemen from New York. We had Native Americans. We had everything in between. And I was their leader, Colonel Roosevelt. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Well, I wanted the struggle. I wanted the struggle of war because I knew that struggle makes strength. And I wanted to struggle so that I could prove my strength to myself and to those around me. Now, let me tell you the story of our most famous battle in that war. It was at a place called San Juan Hill in Cuba. Imagine a steep hill covered with Spanish soldiers at the top with big guns. And it was us at the bottom, and it was hot. It was over 100 degrees, and we were wearing these. Well, we had to charge up that hill, up into terrible danger, and I led my men. I led the Rough Riders. They were all on foot, but I was on my horse right up in front, terribly exposed. One of my men, I noticed, was afraid. He was afraid to stand up and run forward, and I said to him, stand up, man. If I can do it on a horse, you can at least do it on foot. And he did. He stood up, and we charged the hill, and we won the battle. In fact, we won the war. Now, when we came home, people told us we were heroes, and that was a good feeling. I was proud that I had shown my courage, my strength. I was proud that I had proven to myself and to others that I was up for the struggle of war. That young sick boy with asthma had grown into a strong and brave man. How? Through struggle. Why? Well, you know the answer now. Struggle what? Builds strength. That's right, bully. And was that strength just for me alone? No. You must know that courage, character, strength, the reason we build it is to help others, to lead others, to serve others. And that is why you must be strong, not just for yourselves, but for those you love, for those around you, for the great adventure of life. Well, back to New York. Newspapers wrote stories about us, everyone wanted to meet me, and within 3 months, I was elected governor of New York. Can you believe it? And as governor, I helped people. I used my strength to stand up to bad leaders. I protected the workers. I made New York better. Now, just like when I was leading the police, when I was governor of New York, some of those powerful people were bothered by me because they wanted to be able to do whatever they wanted to do whenever they wanted to do it. They wanted to take advantage of people if they felt like it. So in the year 1900, the dawn of a new century, they had an idea. Let's make Teddy Roosevelt the vice president, they said. That'll get him out of the way. Now, back then, being vice president, it wasn't much of a job. It was a quiet job where you couldn't cause too much trouble. That's why they thought they were getting rid of me. Ha! Not a chance. But I said yes, because I believed in the president, President McKinley, and I wanted to serve my country. So I became Vice President of the United States when McKinley won the presidential election. Well, then on September 6, 1901, something terrible happened. President McKinley was shot and killed by an assassin. That's someone who tries to kill important people because they disagree with them. It's a terrible thing. I was away here, hiking in the Adirondack Mountains when it happened, and they told me. I rushed back to be by President McKinley's side, but sadly he died on September 14th, 1901. Now, when the president dies, do any of you know who then becomes president? Shout it out. Oh, you have good teachers here. Yes, the vice president, that's right. So, at just 42 years old, I took the oath of office, and I became the 26th President of the United States. The youngest president ever in American history. To this day, I'll have you know. It was a heavy responsibility, but also an exciting one. A great adventure. I knew that I was strong enough, not just in my body, but in my heart. And so I determined to be a great president. Well, there I was, President of the United States. So what was I going to do? Just sit around or make a difference? Of course, make a difference. That's right. So I did many, many things as president that we don't have time for, but I'll tell you especially about a couple of them. Now, do you remember what I mentioned about my dream of that canal? Well, we did it. And it was the greatest engineering achievement in the history of the world. The French had tried it before us, but we finished it. We achieved it. For 300 years, men had dreamed of this canal. Now, here's a picture of me visiting it, and here's a picture of some of the men building it. And I'll tell you what, up until this time, no president had ever left the country while he was president, but I did, because it sounded fun. And I went to visit the Panama Canal and view the construction. It was amazing. It was a glorious sight, and I knew that this would change the world, and it did. And ships use it to this day. Would you like to see something fun? Okay, good. Now here's a tricky question. Does anyone know what a palindrome is? Right here. Well, close. It's a word that's spelled the same forward and backward, like Eve, Adam and Eve. EVE, it's spelled the same backward. EVE, or radar, or rotator. Would you like to learn a fun one? Well, good. I was a man. I had a plan. That plan was to build a canal, and the canal was in Panama. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama. Ha! Now you can impress your family and friends and your teachers. That's right. Bully. That's right. Very good, very good. Well, what else? Now listen, I'll tell you another fun story. I see that you like fun stories. This must be one of those fun schools. I had always loved to hunt. My father used to take me hunting as a boy. It was a very common way to enjoy the great outdoors back then. In fact, we used to go on great adventures to Africa to hunt giant animals. Now, after I became president, I was invited to Mississippi on a bear hunt. So I went, but we didn't find any bears. We spent all day and didn't see a single bear, so we were not successful in our hunt. Now, what I did not know was that some of the hunting guides had come upon a black bear and cornered it, and tied it up, captured it, and tied it to a tree. They thought, well, we have to make sure that the president gets his bear. So they sent for me, and they brought me to that bear, tied to that tree, and they said, Mr. President, here is your bear, shoot it. I refused. I would not do it. It was not sportsmanlike. It wasn't fair to the bear. That's not how hunting works. Well, the newspapers got wind of this, and they just thought it was a funny, wonderful story. Here's Teddy Roosevelt, the great hunter, refusing to shoot a bear because he didn't think it was fair. So they published a cartoon of this in the newspaper. People loved it. Now, there was a toy maker in New York, and he had an idea, and he wrote me a letter saying, Mr. President, I would like to sell little stuffed bears and name them after you. I'd like to call them teddy bears. I told him, I don't know how my name is going to help you sell stuffed bears, but go ahead if you would like. I wasn't sure he'd sell any. Well, boy, was I wrong. Does anyone in this room own a teddy bear at home? Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, you're welcome. That was me. Yes. Bears, animals, mountains, wilderness. I loved it all. Truly, I loved it all. The great outdoors, nature, the animals especially. And it wasn't just in the wilderness, you know. Remember, I had 6 kids in the White House. We basically turned the place into a zoo with all the pets they had, and not just teddy bears. There's a picture of my family. There's a bunch of sheep we let graze on the White House lawn. There's our dog. We had a real bear named Jonathan Edwards. It's a good name. We had a lion, a hyena, a badger, guinea pigs, a pony. Now this pony, this is the pony Algonquin, and when Archie got sick, we put it on the White House elevator and brought it up to his room to make him feel better. There's Archie with his pet badger, Josiah. There's Teddy Jr. with Eli, the macaw. My daughter Alice used to keep a real live green snake in her purse. And she named it Emily Spinach because it was skinny like her Aunt Emily and it was green like spinach. Yes, my children were wonderful and adventurous, just like their father. Now listen, I mentioned all those animals and beautiful places. I knew I wanted to protect those things, and not just for my children to enjoy, but for my children's 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 children, like all of you. So, as president, I used my power to do something about it. For all the kids who would come after me, I created 5 more national parks, 18 national monuments, and 150 national forests. Crater Lake in Oregon. Wind Cave in South Dakota. These are all the national parks I created. Sully's Hill, North Dakota. You can go see buffalo there. Mesa Verde, Colorado. Remarkable place, truly. Platte, Oklahoma. Now, here in California, I founded Muir Woods National Monument, Pinnacles National Monument, Lassen Peak and Cinder Cone, and many national forests. I also expanded Yosemite. It had already been created, but I made it larger. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. That's me with a man named John Muir, who you may have heard of. I loved Yosemite. I even created Angeles National Forest, just a couple miles from here, right next to Santa Clarita. I loved to travel to all these places. This beautiful country of ours, I will tell you, has some of the most spectacular wilderness and scenery anywhere in the world. How many of you have been to a national park or a forest or ever seen a wild animal? Yes, indeed. Indeed. Well, you can thank the work of many people for protecting those animals, for protecting the beautiful places of America. People like me, but not just me. When you're strong, you ought to do things to protect others, whether it's animals or places or people. We don't struggle and get strong just for ourselves, as I said. We get strong to do good, as God says, to love our neighbor. And all these parks and forests were part of how I tried to do that. Now, there are so many other things that we could talk about. I lived a very full life, and no one's life can truly be told in 30 minutes. Not mine and not even any of yours, young as you are. Your life can only be lived, and it is all of you who must live it. I am proud of the adventure of my life, all the hard things, all the struggles, my childhood asthma, the death of my father, my wife, my mother, the difficulties of the cowboy life, the Rough Riders, the joy and struggle of raising children. All of these things made me stronger. And with that strength came love and joy and great adventure. So each of you must choose, as I did. Do you want your life to be a great adventure or not? Yes. Well, if you want your life to be a great adventure, then you must struggle for it. You must fight for it. You must do the hard things day after day. You cannot be afraid to fail. In fact, you must fail many times. Fail and try again. That is how you learn. Train your bodies. Work hard. Train your minds and your hearts, and persevere through the challenges that life brings, because it will. But the struggle is important. Because what? Struggle builds strength. And strength is required for adventure. And adventure is a great thing. So if you remember one thing that you learned from me today, remember that. Struggle builds strength, and you need strength for the adventure. And this life, my friends, is a very great adventure if you want it to be. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. President. I
My
really
pleasure,
appreciate
Mr.
you being
Lopez.
here. I know you have a busy day.
Very busy indeed.
Very busy. I was wondering, I know that there's probably some students who have some questions for you. I was wondering if we could ask you some questions.
Certainly.
All right. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I can't call on everybody because we are almost out of time, but I will call on some of you guys. Make sure your questions are, one, appropriate and one that we can all learn from, okay? All right, I'm going to start right here.
Were was all the places that you worked, was it fun?
It was fun. It was hard. It wasn't always easy. But hard work is fun if you learn to let it be fun. Because the fun things are usually hard if they're really fun.
Where did you live?
Oh, I lived many places. I lived in New York. I lived in North Dakota. I lived overseas in other countries. But mostly I lived in America.
What was the best part about it?
The best part about it, oh, I loved the great outdoors. Traveling to the national parks and the mountains and the forests.
How old are you?
Well, I was 60 years old when I died. But I came back to visit you all today.
Excuse
What was the best part of the mountains when you went out?
My favorite part of the mountains was reaching the top, when you had worked hard and you were tired and you got a beautiful view.
What was your greatest adventure?
My greatest adventure. Well, my greatest adventure was to South America after the end of my presidency. I went with my son.
What was your favorite tree when you traveled to?
My favorite what?
Tree.
Treat? Beef jerky. Oh, tree, the tall ones.
How many people died in war?
Oh, it's a very, very serious and important question. The truth is I don't know the full number, but war is a very serious and sad thing, although sometimes necessary.
Did you have fun in your world?
Fun? My boy, my whole life was fun. And yours ought to be too.
How much pets did you have?
I'm sorry?
How much pets do you have?
How many pets? Oh, gosh. 10, 20, 50, 100, I don't know. There were animals everywhere, including my children.
How many adventures did you have?
How many adventures? Oh, at least 10 or 12.
Why do you have that funny mustache?
Because it looks good. And it tickles my kids when I kiss them.
All right, boys and girls, we have a few more questions.
What was your favorite battle?
My favorite. Well, San Juan Hill, the one I told you about. You know, I'll tell you, my horse's name in that battle was Little Texas. He was a very, very good horse. Little Texas, that's right.
How many years did he live?
60. Yeah.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions.
Where do you live now?
Where do I live now? Well, now I'm in heaven, girl, but I came down to visit today.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color? Brown. Because it's the one I'm wearing today.
All right, boys and girls. Well, that is the end of our assembly. Can we give our president a round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you very much, children. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much again for visiting us, Mr. President.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
All right, boys and girls. Well, look to your teachers for dismissal. Have a wonderful day.